Hello, people. Welcome and thank you for joining my weekly Wednesday live Q&A. I am Ruokangas, your humble servant, on a mission from the gods and goddesses of fretted instruments, wherever they may be. And today it is September 30th, 2020, and this is the 6th episode in a series of interviews called Factory versus Luthier, What is the Real Difference? Now, so far I've talked to Grit Laskin, to John Page, Nick Huber, Tom Anderson, and Tim Shaw from Fender. Now that's a pretty convincing roster of hard-boiled professionals in the field of guitar making. Individual luthier, small-scale serial production, as well as an expert of what it means to design guitars for mass production purposes. But I think we're seriously missing a perspective, and I will tell you a little story first that help us focus. The European Guitar Builders Association, later might be referred to as EGB, held a symposium in Vienna in June 2017. Let me show you a photo from that time. There you go. Now, I'm one of the founders of this organization, and I have a fancy title, Vice President. Sounds a lot fancier than what it means in real life, I promise. But anyway, one of the main topics for this event was to launch what we called at the time the Community Build Project. And this was an effort where luthiers would cooperate in groups of, 5 to 7 persons, and each group would design and make a custom instrument for a professional musician. Now, we had 3 groups, one that made an electric guitar, another made an electric bass, and the third one an acoustic guitar. And the musicians had been selected beforehand. They had been selected beforehand. And these lucky 3 winners, we could call them that, because they would each get an instrument without paying for it, other than with their dedication and time to take part of the design process and so on. So, why such a project, you may ask? Well, here's the twist. It had been widely reported on statistics those years, that guitar playing is and was a declining trend. Had been so this way for the past 10 years or so. But there was another noticeable micro trend worldwide. More and more women had taken guitar to their hands and started learning to play. Well, women have played guitars as long as men have played, but it has been indeed, for whatever cultural reasons, a field of making music where men have dominated the scene, hands down. Even more so in electric guitar playing, but also playing bass, playing acoustic guitar, and so on. So, okay, back to the EGB Community Build Project. Remember, EGB, European Guitar Builders Association. So our 3 professional musicians, they were all women. I'll show you a photo of them a bit later today, I promise. But why this story? Well, this event was where I met, or maybe we had met already at the Holy Grail Guitar Show earlier on, but this was where we got to know each other a little bit with a young guitar maker from England who also took part to the EGB Community Build Project, the acoustic guitar group, of which I'm going to show you a photo. Here's the acoustic guitar group, EGB Community Build, 2017 to 2018. From left, Adriano Sergio, Andy Manson, Jackie Bastek, the artist, Christian Stoll, Christian Jablonski, and Rosie Heydenrych, the founder of Turnstone Guitars, and my guest for today. I've had this habit of talking of the gods of fretted instruments, and today I have the honor to welcome the first goddess of fretted instruments to the broadcast, so welcome, Rosie. Hey, Rosie.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Welcome. It's a great honor, and people, you'll find the link to Rosie's website, the Turnstone Guitars website, below in the descriptions of this video. Now, Rosie, the fact that you were one of the luthiers taking part to this particular EGB project, making guitars for female musicians, carries along certain connotations that we might get back to, later during this podcast. But before that, tell me, what got you into guitar making? What made you do it?
So I guess right back at the beginning, it was that I played guitar. I started playing acoustic guitar, when I was 17. And then that spawned into learning the electric guitar when I went to university. And so always it was my instrument. I absolutely loved playing it. But when it actually came to making guitars, my interest in guitar making kind of stemmed from my mum. Actually gave me a secondhand 12-fret guitar for a birthday one year, and in the label it said, the company was called Lakeland, which I haven't been able to find out anything more since about them, having searched for it, but it said made in England, and I was just taken aback. And because I was a Taylor girl, I loved Taylor guitars. I knew that guitars were obviously the majority of which were made in America, but I was like, what, made in England? Do they still make guitars in England? So then that kind of got me researching, looking into finding out what luthiers were, and just generally becoming a little bit more interested in that. So that was kind of the lutherie aspect of things. And it so happened that I was working in London, I was around the age of 25, getting into a bit of a kind of working rut. I'd left kind of a lot of the guitar playing behind me, and I kind of was feeling like I wanted to get back to doing something a little bit more creative with my life. And I got an email from the London Metropolitan University, which was actually located about 20 minutes away from where I was working, and they started doing evening courses in guitar making.
Right.
So it was kind of all of these things coming together. So I was just kind of like, well, I'll give it a shot. I can just go along once a week, cycle after work over to the class, and kind of just see if it's something that I creatively enjoy. I kind of had a bit of background with woodworking. I'd done what's called the GCSE in woodworking at school. So it was just kind of all these things coming together, the guitars, the woodworking, the creativity side of it. And I just started going on to that, and it kind of all spawned from there.
Yeah. Sounds like, I can relate to a lot of what you said about, kind of, being kind of like sucked into it in a way, that having that kind of pull. Same way as playing music.
Yes, and actually even more so for me, it kind of pulled me in and pushed me a lot harder than I'd ever pushed myself at anything. Even with the playing, I kind of got to a stage where I was like, I'm not going to get any better. But with the woodworking, I was like, I need to get better. I need to go through that pain, to push myself to get better. So it just, maybe it was just the right kind of things coming together that just worked for me. And yeah.
We're getting we have here a couple of, I think, excellent questions. There's people here watching us live. Thank you, people. Hello, everyone. And I'm gonna get to those questions in a moment when we get kind of to a little bit to Rosie's work from another perspective. But I want to show you first something. I don't have here photos of your guitars, other than I have this book, which I'm fairly certain that you have this book as well. Now, people, this is
I do. It's probably within arm's reach as well, so I could grab it somewhere. Yeah.
So, this book, it says in the cover, "Guitar, the world's most seductive instrument." So there you see why Rosie was pulled into making guitars. Why I was pulled into making guitars. It is the world's most seductive instrument. That's why you play guitar, guys. So, sending best regards to David Schiller, the maker of this book. I'm gonna show you. I think I have here a little note. I wanted to show this for two reasons. First reason is that there is, on this page, there is Rosie's guitar. I'm gonna show it to the camera that Rosie's in another camera, but I'm going to show it to people closer to the camera that they are seeing in the stream. Yeah, there is a turnstone guitar, and a few pages away there's some of our work too. So we are both in the same book, which I think is very cool.
Oh, brilliant.
It's very cool. We're both in the same book. I noticed it a long time ago when I got my copy, and let me read you from the back cover. I think it's very relevant to this topic. So, icons like Princess Yellow Cloud, Willie Nelson's Trigger, Muddy Waters' Thunderbird, and Rocky, lovingly hand-painted by its owner George Harrison. Milestones including Leo Fender's Broadcaster and the Gibson Nick Lucas Special, the very first artist model. Hand-carved archtops, pinnacles of the Luthier's art from John DeAngelico to Ken Parker. Stunning acoustics from a new wave of women builders like Rosie Heydenrych of England, who's known to use 5,000-year-old wood retrieved from a peat bog. And quirky, one-of-a-kind guitars like Linda Manser's Picasso 2. 4 necks, 42 strings, and 1,000 pounds of pressure. There you go. You got to the back cover. I didn't get to the back cover.
I know. Unbelievable.
Congratulations. Congratulations for that.
I don't think I was worthy of being mentioned next to Linda, but yeah.
Well, I think it's a good connotation there. That they mentioned you and they mentioned Linda. I think it's a good thing that David did it. It's definitely the right way to do it. And people go buy this book first. You know, read the book. And after you read the book, you know, order a guitar from Rosie and order a guitar from me. Okay, deal? We do that. Okay, cool. So, Rosie, now I mentioned here a few names on the back cover of this book. Do you have role models, luthiers, that you consider like, you know, godly creatures, amongst us mortals?
I mean, yes. I mean, they're kind of, I think, more like inspired by. Role models. Maybe I don't know is the right word that I would maybe use.
Yeah, right.
There's loads of luthiers that inspire me, and of course Linda. A lot of the female luthiers. So Kathy Wingett, Linda Manza, Peggy White. Christina Kobler from Austria, Noemi from Italy. They kind of inspire me because they forged the path before I did. And when I first started, I looked to see, are there women even doing this? Like, is this something completely bizarre that I'm trying to take on? And then just seeing them just kind of encouraged me and saying, yeah, you can do it. They're there. So from, you know, a role model perspective, certainly all the women luthiers that have forged the path in front of me, I massively admire. And especially to mention Kathy Wingett, I reached out to her when I was, she had a design of an arm bevel that I really liked, kind of the way that she approached it. So I asked her if I could do it, and she said, yeah, absolutely fine. And then she was like, so you want to make a living out of this? Let me tell you know what. Let me give you some advice. She just like came out with like so much useful stuff. That you know I took on board, and it really helped kind of from both a building and business perspective, helped me kind of you know make some decisions there. So definitely that I guess some people that have advised me and really kind of helped me with my building and my processes. So people like Nick Benjamin, he's a steel string luthier based about 40 minutes away from me, and he's kind of, I've spent some time in his shop and he's explained some of his processes which I've adapted into my shop. So he's been a big influence on the way that I build. And I also spent a little bit of time with Patrick Eggle, who's now, he's mainly an electric builder now, but he did a fair bit in the acoustic world. And just as he was ramping down the acoustics, I spent a day there with one of his colleagues kind of going around. And because he he's that slightly big, he's, you know, got the slightly bigger setup. So it was the first experience I had of seeing kind of something done on a bigger scale than just a one-man shop.
Yeah.
So that was massively inspiring to see and take on some new ideas that I'd never seen before. So yeah, I mean, there's so many. Grit Laskin, who you had on the show. I had a table at a show called Woodstock, which is an acoustic guitar show in New York in America.
Yeah.
And he was on the table next to me, and we obviously chatted, and just, you know, that type of energy that comes from him, and he's just so enthusiastic about guitar building. It just kind of emits from him, and you get absorbed in that kind of radiation of energy. Just being around somebody like that, seeing how, you know, how long that he's been working, that he's still so inspired by it. Dana Bourgeois, I met at NAMM a fair few times, and again, he's got that same kind of that energy about, they're just still so excited by guitar building, and it's just so wonderful to see that after all this time they're still, you know, want to talk about it. They're interested in you and like kind of your approaches, and they're open to kind of listening to your interpretation of things as well. And I think it's lots of them.
You mentioned some very dear people to myself also, so now okay, so I'll continue from the theme of you know, Rosie, you being a female luthier. Well, in the lack of a better term, as you actually referred to also, it's somewhat a rarity, and obviously the gender of a person should be irrelevant, you know, to the profession. But as we know, the society we live in, the traditional gender roles, women's rights, even, you know, prejudice, whatnot, you know, they still echo all around us, even, you know, no matter how irrelevant and idiotic, but it's still there. So I mean, what's your take on this? Do you experience being a woman, you know, has set more challenges to your work, or how have you kind of experienced this?
Well, I guess there's quite numerous dimensions to the question. So I guess just being a woman in this industry, I, from the outset, kind of saw it a little bit as an advantage, because the market is just so saturated. There's so many guitar makers, and you just start to think, you know, is there even an opportunity for me here to do something different, to stand out? Obviously, you're thinking about how your work's going to do that as well, but you're kind of a little bit like, well, just, you know, I'm different. So whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But the fact is, I'm just a little bit different. So will that help me to stand out and kind of help me forge my way into the industry in a certain respect? That's kind of was my initial mindset. And I have to say, as far as I know, a lot of women have, some female luthiers have encountered kind of negative judgments towards them just because of their gender. I haven't necessarily experienced that myself. I have had situations where people have, for example, when I've been at guitar shows, I'll be often on the stand with my husband, and people will start just automatically talking to my husband, and then we have the joke that he says, well, actually she's the builder, and then they kind of just are a bit aghast, but not in kind of a bad way. So there's that. But again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just people, it's their assumptions, I guess.
It's just isn't so common. So
yeah, exactly. So I think that there's that. But yeah, I mean, the stuff that I can't determine really is if there is kind of assumptions being made about me because of my gender. Like, are people perhaps not respecting me on the same level as some of my male counterparts purely for the fact that I'm a woman? I don't know. It could well be the case. It's not unknown. But the only thing that I can do in that instance is just work as hard as I can to make sure that my work speaks for itself. So it's regardless of gender.
Exactly.
So that's really kind of.
Sorry. I have to say that because that part. I mean, it's for every one of us. The kind of I feel it as a comforting fact that in the long run, you know, each one of us will be judged, in the long run by the standard of our work, and that's the beauty of it as well. That's going to be at the end of the day, when we make handmade guitars with being a luthier, that's the way it's going to be. And there can be all sorts of preconceptions and suspicions or whatever for several reasons. It could be a gender, it could be also from which country you come from. I could imagine that it's very difficult for an extremely talented luthier. I'll take a very kind of like a provocative example, extremely talented luthier from China to convince, there could be one example, or Eastern Europe sometimes has that kind of stigma to it that, it's somehow of a lesser quality, which is totally not true. It's just totally not true when you see some of the beautiful work that comes from those parts of the world. So there can be so different kinds of prejudices in our not so perfect world.
Yeah, and that's there is only so much that you can do about that, barring just kind of getting your head down and keeping on working. But I guess the other angle of being a woman, the question would beg, well, are you physically capable of making guitars? It's quite a male traditional activity, woodworking. Are women physically strong enough to do it? And the question, and a woman is physically capable of doing anything within the remit of guitar making. The one thing that I would say that I speak for myself, struggle with is the movement of massive machinery. So my workshop's on a second floor, getting big. As the machinery's expanded, it's gotten bigger and heavier, and getting it up the stairs. When that happens, or when we have to move it around, I'm literally like, I can't. I walk around my business center commandeering men to come and lift my machinery up the stairs, because I just can't physically do it. That's the one instance where I just there is a physical difference.
But
I'm okay with that.
But that's also would be smart, even if you're a guy. It's smart to ask for help. Whenever you can't do something, you ask help. I have so many limitations, and whenever I have a limitation, I ask for help. Simple as that. People ask for help. You work completely alone, and don't have help from anywhere. You're gonna be at the end of the day, you're gonna be in deep trouble. So it's good to have people. I'm gonna take one question here about your guitars. First, we have here quite a few people saying hello. Emma is sending regards from our home in the next door. And we have here lots of people, lots of Mibu from Romania is here, Janne is here, Kai Randall, hi Rosie, best wishes for a great show from the UK, maybe someone you know. Denis Mischenko, hey there, glad to see you guys. But there's this guy, Parcel of Rogue is the name that he has given us here.
Okay. I'm
going to bring this question up. How does Rosie voice her guitars, and what is she aiming for in response and tone? Are they aimed at a particular type of player? I'm going to give you 1 minute, because this is off our topic, but I want you to be able to answer to this question.
Okay,
2 minutes.
I voice the guitar through the way that I shape the braces. I think there's tons of stuff that can be manipulated through the bracing, the actual height and the width of the bracing. So I dedicate certain sides to doing certain things without going into, I've got a minute here. The other thing that is a particular, I guess, thing that I do is using different species of wood on my bracing. So finding ones that really accentuate treble, like puduk, on the bass, then using things like cedars, and using them in particular ways to voice the guitars to bring out both the bass and the treble. which when all coming together, when all the strings and everything's moving together, that everything is kind of resonating, but in different ways, trying to voice it so that it's really balanced, but kind of really alive in both senses of the acoustic register.
Yeah, an inspiring musical instrument. That's what you're aiming at. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, the shorter answer.
Yeah. Well, just summarizing.
No,
But it was a great answer. So parcel of rogue. There you got one. You have another question here. I'm not going to bring it up yet. Let's see if that's. Denis Mischenko is wishing that I would bring Ben Crow from Crimson Guitars to the show. Couldn't help but notice he's not a woman, but still. What do you think about great guitar built off? I'm not sure I understand the question, but what
I think he's enticing a building duel, perhaps.
Okay, aha.
Maybe.
What do I think of that? Well, as we know, as Rosie and I both know, guitar making is all about competition. Who is the best? Just like guitar playing, who is the fastest? That's what it's all about. So, no, yeah. I'm kidding.
Extremely
come on,
bunch.
Duel. Come on. What is that? I don't know what is that. Maybe it's a great entertainment, maybe. But we move on into our very serious topic. Now, I'll jump back into my introduction story. I talked about the EGB Community Build project that you participated as well, Rosie. And I remember how the EGB board, we had meetings leading to this, conjuring up this plan, brainstorming the various perspectives of the community build, wondering how female artists would react to it. And I remember my wife, Emma, saying to us then, why don't you ask the women? And the point being here that here we were, the very serious, very important EGB board, the president, Michael Spalt, the vice president, Juha, and all these other middle-aged men planning a project to make guitars for women. And so let me show you a photo of the three women to whom we built these instruments for. I was also in one of these groups, in the electric guitar group, but I'm going to show you a photo of the three wonderfully skilled musicians. From left, Jackie Bastek. In the middle, Julia Hofer with her bass, and Elena Todorova on the right. So these three, they're all professional musicians, and actually you can see there the instruments that we participated, building for them. Now, Rosie, I believe this was not. I think it was a very cool project, but very challenging project, having so many chefs, so many luthiers making one instrument and designing one. It was kind of a headache, but we are. Yeah. I don't think anybody slit their wrists or did anything funny to themselves. So everybody survived. We're all alive, and it was a cool project. And as I believe all three instruments are being played by these musicians. Now, Rosie, I believe this was not the first time that you came to think of designing a guitar particularly for a female guitarist. Am I right?
No, yeah. So when I kind of was envisaging my life and career as a guitar maker, I kind of thought, perhaps innocently at the beginning, that I could tailor it completely for women, that I could build a guitar brand. Obviously, in the electric world, it's completely different, but there's a brand called Daisy Rock, I think, in electric guitars. That's electric, lower end, more targeted for, I think, younger girls, that kind of thing. But, it's a guitar brand for women, which had never been done before. Yeah. And I thought, if I'm going to become a custom maker, there's lots of stuff that women struggle with guitars, the necks, the body shapes, the size of the guitar. Is there something that maybe I can, start to delve into and find a captive audience that could maybe be kind of my niche? But I was advised pretty much when I said to the first person, they were like, no, that's not going to work. You're not going to have them. There's not enough of them
Right.
to be receptive to that
Right.
soul niche. So and I think to a certain degree that is true. I mean, I built a few guitars for women. I had a few female customers, but large part is male, and that is the market that we serve. So that one might have to go on the back burner for a little while.
Right. So this would have been my next question. That since you are a woman making guitars, that would bigger percentage of your clientele, your customers be women in this case. But as you now answered, it is not exactly the case. We built a few instruments for women, for female artists, musicians, but it's really a tiny percentage, which I think you actually, because Rosie and I, we did a little kind of preparation talk was it last week? I think it was last week or the week before. Yeah. To kind of talk about these topics a little bit, and you mentioned at that time, I think a pretty good point about, women and the fact that the trend we are seeing now, that there seems to be a lot of younger women playing guitar. You can see it on Instagram, you can see it on YouTube, you can see it on social medias everywhere. Very, very talented, technically challenging stuff that they're playing. Well, all kinds of stuff, obviously, but also very technically, kind of stuff with, for example, with electric guitar that you would 10, 20 years ago, you would absolutely think that's for the guys, for the shredders, for the, it was kind of that culture, and it was like 100%, 99.9% guys. There were a few women already back in the 80s and on. There were a few women there, but not too many. But you mentioned that now that it's a trend, that and the statistics, Fender statistics and others that say that that surprisingly big percentage of new guitar buyers are women, that it shows more in the lower end of mass-produced guitars at this point of time, and maybe later.
Yeah. I think when we were talking, I mentioned kind of my trajectory as a female guitar player. The first guitar that I had was £100 Aria guitar, which I loved, and that served me well for a good 5 years or so. And then, as I said, I kind of went into the electric world, but then went back to the acoustic. And then I was like, I want a really nice acoustic. So I spent more money on a Taylor guitar. And then from there, probably a few years down, maybe 5 years down the line from there, I would have wanted something else, and it would keep going. And I think that's what is happening in the market that we're currently delivering to, are the people that, went through that journey 25 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, maybe, everybody has their different speeds. But I think kind of in the grand scheme of things, for somebody to start spending the type of money that our instruments go for, it takes time for people to kind of gain the capital to afford it, but equally just kind of start wanting to have instruments of that certain level. So I think it's going to happen. And I think it's all moving, like you say, with the guitar players, the women, the resources that are available, women feeling more welcome. Like when I used to go into a guitar store, they would ignore me and talk to the men, and I think that's changing. I think people are becoming more welcome to women at guitar shows. So I think it's happening, but it's not happening overnight. And I think, but we as a community of guitar builders, like with what we did with the Holy Grail, building for female musicians, exploring kind of what it is to be a female guitar player and how, as custom builders, we can cater towards them. I think there is a lot that we can still do to show that it could be that we're not even on the radar of a lot of female guitar players. They've
Yeah.
got this, I had my sights set on just a Gibson because I
Yeah.
read about them in every single magazine that I picked up,
Yeah.
and maybe like endorsing more female artists through our instruments is just building awareness around our own smaller niche brands. So I think there's a lot of potential, but perhaps it will just take time, like it's taken time to develop the handmade market that we're experiencing today.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. I'm gonna take another question at this point. There is um, there are people interested in your guitars here, which is great. So I'm gonna bring another Kai Randell. Sorry, Kai Randell. Hi Rosie, hope to have opportunity to play one of the guitars. At outset for your builds, were you working from perspective of noticing missing flavors of tone or experiment to find new options?
So sorry, I missed the first bit of that. Could you just read it
Yeah,
again?
at outset for your builds, were you working from perspective of noticing missing flavors of tone or experiment to find new options?
I think it's one of those things that you basically you have to just build a few guitars, I think, to kind of set the groundwork, and then from there, what I would learn quite a lot is through the materials used on acoustic guitar on the back and sides. Like that's quite a clear way to kind of learn about the character of the tonality of certain species of wood, but also just using hand tools and feeling wood in your hand, the usual tappy tap, that kind of thing. As you start to experiment with lots of different woods, you start to hear their character while you're tapping it, and then once you build an instrument with it, you see how it transposes into the context of an instrument. So when you're starting to experiment using different timbers and kind of flavoring, as you say, then you can kind of say, well, okay, well, this wood has got a really kind of woody, rounded, but perhaps is missing a bit of articulation. Then you bring in another piece of wood, which is like, this has got shine, shimmer. Maybe, bringing the two together can kind of outweigh what one lacks, one accentuates. They come together and boom, it's a combination.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
think it's
through trial and error to a certain degree, but learning from the experience of building in the context for which you use it.
yeah, I think it's fascinating that it's also me being a guitar maker professionally 25 years plus the years I was studying and as kind of like a hobby builder as well. Before that, even a little bit. It's a never-ending process, and that's the fascinating thing. And I feel that when you be able to build the perfect one, then it's time to do something else. I feel.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
anyway,
yeah. There's so many variables that if you ever said that you tried everything, I think you'd be lying, because there's
yeah,
always something you can have a fiddle around with.
yeah, and it's a and the process of making guitars and manipulating the materials and kind of bending them to your will. It is the
Yeah,
part that I feel it's just there's something magical about it that um, that is so fascinating, and and the process of kind of diving into that it's like it's this meditative process where you kind of in meditation you're kind of you're focusing into your mind, but in this type of well meditation of the guitar or the wood piece or whatever you're working on, it's kind of like that you're focusing your every nerve, your every cell, your every sense to kind of to understand that material better and to the instrument better. So it's no wonder that
yeah.
it becomes an addiction, that you continue making guitars
Mm,
even if you wouldn't kind of even it would be wiser maybe not to, but you still can't
yeah,
be without. So it's like kind of like that,
yeah,
I feel. um
yeah. It sucks you.
I'm gonna move on to the actual initial reason why I came to think of interviewing you. Or, well, this was partly Emma, because I was thinking of inviting a young generation god of fretted instruments, where Emma commented instantly, hey, what about all the goddesses of fretted instruments? Equally important goddesses of fretted instruments. So that's how kind of your name popped up, and yeah, so that's why you're here. So, but anyways, the fact that you're indeed representing the younger generation of luthiers. I'm not talking about female luthiers, who began their career when the worldwide boutique guitar already existed somewhat in the format it is today. It hasn't changed in these past 5+ some years so very much. In other words, the modern online renaissance of handmade guitar was already there when you started your business. Now, Rosie, does your I kind of know the answer, because you already sort of referred to, but not really. So, does your younger age correlate in your clientele? Perhaps your guitar buyers are younger than my guitar buyers.
I think in the broad sense, the answer is probably no. I have had younger builders, but did they come to me because I'm younger myself? I don't kind of get that feeling. Yeah, I mean, again, it's a bit of a, so yeah, generally my customers are older, and I think that comes down to what we were talking about before, with the market kind of having evolved and the market being exactly what it is. But I also think it comes down to that I think a lot of young people like my guitars and would like to have one, but just don't, life is happening for them, and they have more important things to spend their money on, realistically, perhaps, than a really expensive guitar. So it's kind of a shame, really, and it's something that I think about, and if there's anything I can do. And thinking about this earlier, one of a guitar maker based in Scotland, Rory Dowling, of Taran Guitars, he makes wonderful instruments. He does this thing called a young player's bursary. So every year he has an allocation of one instrument that a young person under the age of 25 can apply for, which is a heavily reduced priced guitar, custom made for them. Right. They submit kind of what they're doing in their musical career, and essentially endorsing specifically a younger player. So that, I think, is a really good idea.
It's amazing.
Just trying to integrate. Yeah, I think it's like that kind of thing is a wonderful idea, and one that I definitely want to try and see if I can do to get involved with a younger audience. But so that's where I'm at with that. But as far as kind of general, my customers are kind of 40+. Which I would assume maybe this is the same for you.
It's very, very, very similar. I would say there is that group of we making electric guitars, and our let's say the most affordable ones, which doesn't make them cheap, but the most affordable ones, they start from somewhere 3K plus euros price range. So I see there also a group of kind of like in that 3-4, kind of like in that there's a group of like typically would be serious young wannabe musicians who are studying to be musicians. They could be one group that I noticed that is kind of becoming more and more something. So I think that's very cool, because I feel that there is a big potential. Of course, I think this kind of relates to a question that our viewer Parcel of Rogue has asked another question, which I think is a very good question. I'm going to bring that one up. He's asking, how do handmakers divert players from deciding that they want a Martin guitar, for instance, in advance of even looking around seriously at anything else? So I think, of course, there is this is the thing that like you were saying also when you were younger and you saw Gibson, that's what you saw in magazines, so that's what you kind of like gravitated towards. And the same for me,
Yeah.
same for everybody. It's like the money talks and advertisement and marketing talks.
Yeah.
And I would say to Parcel of Rogue that what I'm seeing, it's how do handmakers divert players or kind of how do we bang the drum about our existence more. I think it's in that regard we are living at a very positive age, very positive time with the online possibilities. Okay, it's a lot of noise. It's not easy to be noticed there either, and there also money talks in the same way. But in the same way as I see that the same way as the kind of the music business, making music has sort of fragmented a bit, that there isn't such like a major phenomenons like used to be back in the 80s, 90s, and so on, where kind of like it's more making music is all over the place, and the logistics of making money as a musicians has also fragmented in that way. Record business has kind of is struggling and all this, so it's all kind of just exploded into little bits and pieces. But there's very much of it and very much different directions to go to. And in this way, us, the small builders, we are more flexible to actually cater to these smaller groups of people and their needs better, easier.
Yeah, definitely.
And each one of us, we don't need to make so very much guitars, so we cater for smaller audience, and the other next builder caters for others. So maybe that's also a reason why there doesn't seem to be, even though technically speaking, a lot of us, acoustic builders, other luthiers who make acoustic guitars, flat top steel string guitars, they are your rivals. They're your competition. But there isn't that, and it's the same way for me. I mean, there's so much competition, but it doesn't feel like competition. It feels more like we're the tribe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a perfect example that I think of when talking about this is the Canadian luthiers like Grit Laskin, Linda Manzer, David Wren, and 4 more others, which I aren't springing to mind right now, but they all kind of came out of the Larrivee shop and started their own businesses, and you could think, well, they all going to come out and be like, well, I'm going to be the most successful out of the people that have left. But my understanding is that they all kind of shared ideas, really had that kind of collective approach that pushed, I think, collectively their craft to a higher level and created the boutique Canadian guitar market that people we're still experiencing today. And without maybe their collaboration and them working together, perhaps we wouldn't see that. So I try and think with my peers that if we can share ideas, work together, collaborate through things like the EGB and the initiatives that they do, we're pushing our craft up, and we don't have the thousands of pounds that we can throw into those magazine advertisements. So if we can work together, produce at the end of the day superior instruments, that goes back to what we were saying before, like the work eventually speaks for itself. If somebody's saying, well, I might buy a Martin or I might buy a Handmade, if we can get the opportunity just to show that they're better instruments, they will provide you with more creative inspiration. They will be kind of which one are you going to reach for? It's going to be that one. That's what we're offering. And I think, if we can collaborate and work together, we're not really at the end of the day competing for people. We're creating a market. So that's kind of what I always try to think when you're thinking, exactly, got to keep everything to itself. And A lot of the North American makers, again, they are where they are because they're more than happy to share ideas. So everybody raises up and the craft gets better.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, and there's that in that way, it's pretty cool that now we have in Europe as well, we have the EGB that is kind of like it's like in some form like an open source that, created for sharing information, which is kind of counter to the European old guild systems and, locking the door and hiding all the secret methods and the tools and the, which is like the opposite, the old time.
Yeah.
Because, not everything, viewers here, not everything in the good old times was so great old times. There's some things are better today than, a lot of things are actually better nowadays than they used to be. The modern European way of making guitars and being more open about it and more kind of, like, I like the word tribe. I really like that word that we came up at some point with the, I think it was an EGB symposium, wherever we came up with that, that we're a tribe. Like, we're a tribe, we're trying, our goal is to make the world a little bit better place, one guitar at a time.
Yeah.
That's a good slogan. I think, that's a good slogan. EGB could use that. Let's make the world a better place, one guitar at a time. T-shirt.
Yeah.
An idea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think all of that stuff, helping to spread the word about what we do, is going to have a trickle down effect, and I think it can only do good.
Yeah. I'm gonna bring in. We're kind of running out of time, but I'm still gonna bring in one topic. Let's hope we're not going super much over time. But I saw a video you had done for, I think it was for, at least that's where I saw it, on Fretboard Journal. Maybe somewhere.
Oh yeah.
You did, a little workshop tour. And I noticed you have an interest to CNC as well. And
a new one.
Yeah. So not more than 5 to 10 years. 10 years ago, it was still quite a kind of a hot topic, the CNC equaling something else than handmade. There was that stigma to it, the CNC kind of more, but especially for the younger generation, also my generation. I mean, there's a lot of builders that have kind of taken the CNC machines, the computer controlled, numeric controlled technology to a whole different direction and creating beautiful handmade artwork, one-off pieces with it, as the prices have come down and all that. But so it's becoming more like a shop standard. Whereas in our shop we would use handheld routers, or in my case those big hulks, the pin routers. Like they actually, it's a good reference. Also, they did use these pin routers in the factories for the mass production back in the day. So it's kind of, that's where the pin routers are. They are the yesterday's CNC machines. Before, it's like you have the X and Y axis in the machine, and and you're similar, providing or there's that one axis and you're providing the two missing axes with your hands. And so anyway, for you, CNC, a short comment about that. How did that come about? CNC acoustic guitars, one woman making guitars. How come CNC?
So it came about because specifically, well, there's numerous angles, so I'll try and say this in the most logical way possible. But I was initially looking, so the way that I'm as old school as it came with hand tools. When I first started out, I didn't even know probably what a jig was. I only had a bandsaw, a pillar drill, and the rest was all hand tools. So kind of the concept of mechanizing the process was very foreign to me.
Yeah.
But as you know, like I say, meeting Patrick, meeting other luthiers, all of these things, it started to kind of open up the world of kind of just doing things a bit more efficiently, but kind of obviously being very thankful of the way that I learned, that I got, you know, the feel for it, but becoming more interested in jigging some things up and this kind of thing, but specifically fretboards. So the way that I would do it is scalpel out the lines, handsaw, use a square, you know, not even like a miter box or anything to help me. I square it up and use a handsaw to cut the slots. That I just started to think, well, I need to do this a little bit faster, kind of, if I'm going to carry on doing this. This is just a bit ridiculous. So I started to think, you know, what's the next step up from handsawing? And then you start to think, well, a table saw with, you know, one of these runners which cuts the slots. And so I started to look into that. But it coincided with me understanding the CNC, the way that the CNC would slot a fret is it actually follows the radius, whereas with a handsaw and with a table saw, it goes straight through. Therefore, it's not following the radius. Therefore, you're cutting in the middle, in the middle a lot deeper than you potentially need to. So from a structural perspective, to follow the radius and get it to pretty much exactly what you want it to be as you're doing the slot, structural integrity, it's a better outcome. So I kind of was thinking, well, let's just scrap the table saw, let's just go straight on to potentially the next thing. Instead of me spending money on getting that all jigged up, I'd rather just potentially learn how to do CNC. But then the problem is, well, how do I learn? Like, I'm not a massively computer orientated person, but the EGB, going back again to kind of collaboration and helping people improve the craft, they had a course that came up, a weekend in Vienna at the Spolt workshop, a CNC for luthiers.
So sending regards to Chaco Stuice and the guys who were doing that.
Yes, exactly. So run by Jaco. And so that's the one dimension, was this opportunity came up because my previous understanding was that unless you have an opportunity to learn on the job, or you're just, I don't know, like a complete computer whiz, but then applying it, like a lot of the tutorials and things don't apply to lutherie, it applies to engineering and all these other manufacturing subjects, so actually applying it to a fretboard or something is an impossible task. But this course then was like, okay, there's an opportunity for me to potentially learn quite quickly the stuff that's associated to guitar building. And then on the other side of the equation is that my husband Carl has been getting more and more involved in the guitar, in my business. He does my spray finishing and has been generally kind of been getting more and more involved. And I'm thinking, well, he has a background in IT and he's very good at computers. And as kind of maybe a partnership in the business sense, we start to have our own things that if, you know, he's particularly interested in the finishing and then maybe a few other things, and then I'm kind of interested in the handwork, the design, the working with the customers, and the hand building, the working with the wood, that maybe we can kind of start to see paths for ourselves where it could potentially work as a partnership. So there was all of this kind of thing going on at the same time, and that's kind of where we thought, well, let's go on the course, which was specifically fretboard orientated, so you learn how to do a fretboard, but then kind of for us both to go on it, so Carl can learn the technical side of it, as can I as well, but obviously not as good as him because he's much better at it than me. But I can kind of then strategically see, well, how could, now that if we are going to invest in a CNC, how else can it be used? You know, for jig making. I was just doing something today, cutting out a scratch plate, and Carl was like, I could cut that out on the CNC, and that's something like that. You could say, well, yeah, that's actually ideal. It will save me a little bit of time, and I can then concentrate more time on the stuff that I enjoy doing, like coming up with new designs, trialing new things. I mean, I find that I've got so much to do at the moment that I just don't have any additional time to do any R&D or anything kind of out of just getting, working on the bills. You probably find the same that.
Yeah.
So the CNC, if I can get my fretboard slot to a superior level and get a bit of time back, and get them, consistent, accurate every single time. For me, I know I think that, like you say, I think the taboo is falling. To me, it actually seems quite exciting, like what we could potentially, what new ideas I could come up with like little inlay ideas, or it spawns stuff to me that is exciting. So I think it could take my guitars to a new level. But what I guess you have to do to balance it out is, it's a slippery slope. You kind of, you don't want to suddenly be saying, well, I'm just going to chuck that on the CNC. You want it to be an enabler, not a dumbifier, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is what I wanted to hear. And I kind of knew it, but I wanted our viewers to hear this, because there is always that sometimes comments about CNC. Okay, we don't use CNC, but it has kind of other reasons. I don't see it as anything like some people see that it's evil. I don't see it as evil, or I don't see it that way. But yeah, so I think it's your view of using it concurs very, very much to when I've talked to other builders in the earlier broadcast. So it's kind of goes hand in hand with that stuff. But Rosie, time flies when having fun. It's time to wrap this up. 1 hour, it goes so unbelievably fast.
Yeah.
But
well,
it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're most welcome, and it's really been a pleasure. And thank you so much for joining in. And send.
I'm happy to have represented the younger generation.
You're officially now the representative of the younger generation of all the thousands of luthiers in the world. So, yeah. So send my regards to Carl, and
I will, and to Emma.
Yeah, likewise, Emma. Yeah, I already told Emma's regards, and she actually sent regards in the chat. Also, other people have sent their regards in the chat. Also, you can see it afterwards if you want to look at the people's comments and who was there commenting. The chat, when this video goes, the recording remains in YouTube. The chat won't be visible immediately. It will be probably visible tomorrow or the day after or something like that. It's some kind of YouTube internal. Maybe they are checking some kind of a system that there isn't anything unsuitable there in the chat. I don't know what it's about, but the chat will appear there later on. So anyways, all the best. Take care now, and all the best for your business, for your family, and until next time our paths cross somewhere. By the way, I have to say one more thing. You mentioned your first guitar was an Aria. My first guitar was an Aria too, and I loved my Aria guitar too.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, had to say that. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
So,
thanks, Juha.
Thank you, and take care. Till next time. Bye-bye. There she goes. So, well, I don't know about you guys, but I learned again something new. What a privilege it is to do this program. Enriches my life for sure. I hope yours too. Now, I have one more factory versus luthier video on my list, and this will be a conclusive one where my guest and I will attempt to wrap up the wisdom learned on this journey, interviewing these 6 talented professionals on their respective fields. And now I've been pondering quite a bit on with whom I could do this recap episode to summarize it all. in a cohesive way. And frankly, there will be so many close friends from different walks in life. Luthiers, guitar collectors, musicians, guitar lovers who've ended up becoming retailers of guitars. And then, I realized that there is a guitar maker, a luthier, with whom I have discussed a lot, endlessly, about this very topic. Amongst all things related to guitar, the ethical dilemmas, the paradoxes of practicing our profession in this modern age where many of the traditional materials we've used have become endangered, where the term handmade has become a cliche, an empty word, granting a higher price for any product, regardless of how it's made in its essence. And we've discussed endlessly the different facets of globalization, the free market capitalism, our common consuming habits, and all this, on one way or the other, it actually kind of ties in a variety of ways to our very topic, factory versus luthier. What's the real difference? And does it make any difference for the player? Does it matter for the player? So, yeah. My next guest will be this gentleman. From Vienna, Austria, with his crazy scientist look on this photo, at least. Michael Spalt, yet another god of fretted instruments, and my dear brother in arms, a co-founder and the president of the European Guitar Builders Association, an artist with a capital A in his own right. In the meanwhile, in case you're not familiar with Michael's unique work, do have a look at his website, spaltinstruments.com. That is SPALT instruments.com. And in case you want to know what kind of an association the EGB is, whoops, Freudian slip, that was weird. EGB is. Can we erase that from the video? No, we can't erase that because it's a live stream, damn it. EGB, the website is europeanguitarbuilders.com. I repeat, europeanguitarbuilders.com. Our association is the tribe of people who made the Holy Grail Guitar Show happen, amongst other things, other crazy things like the Community Build Project. Also stuff like local wood challenge for luthiers, reclaimed wood challenge for luthiers, and so on. Like I said earlier, trying to make the world a better place, one guitar at a time. I'm starting to like the sound of that a lot. Wouldn't that be a good punchline for our, let's make the guitar a better place, one guitar at a time. A t-shirt, yes. Hi, guys, what if we, the weekly Wednesday live people, you and I, what if we should have a t-shirt, shouldn't we? I think we should have a t-shirt for the show and for you guys who are so kind to follow the show. Well, I'm not sure about that. Let's make the world a better place, one guitar at a time. What did I say? The guitar a better place? The world a better place, one guitar at a time. I'm not sure if that's the best one, but any ideas, better ones? A good t-shirt for the weekly Wednesday live Q&A. If you have any ideas, leave to the comments. It's really been a pleasure. Let me see. There's Poo Ninja is asking, are you going to interview a CNC router and Plek machine? How could I do that? That's a clever question there. Kremlin Guitar Builders. Oh yeah, KGB. That was a funny one. Okay, I think I'm starting to be too tired to this. Time to call it a day. Now, please, people, share on your own social media channels. If you like the video, hit that like button. It does help. If you already haven't subscribed, the button is there. You'll find it there, somewhere there. Probably there. Yeah, and the bell icon next to it, so you'll be notified about the next videos. Share to your friends, please. Share to your friends. That it helps to spread the word, spread the gospel of handmade guitar. Shaggy's faction. Let's bring that and leave that on when we go to the outro. Shaggy's faction is saying t-shirt would be super cool. I agree. T-shirt would be super cool. Yeah, that's it, people. Let's call it a day. Go to sleep. All depends on which part of the world you're watching this. In Finland, it is now 10 p.m. 10 past 10 in the evening. So time for me to. Yeah. So that's it. Take care. Look after your loved ones. Peace, love, and good music. That will take us far.